Awesome, welcome to our reports module. So this is where we can start to take some of the key data that we're getting through and turn it into insights specific for our fleet. So if we open up our reports drop down here, first thing you're going to notice is that there's a lot of different default reports in the system. But before we jump into any of those, something really key to cover is that RAM platform is what we call events based. So before, when we spoke about bringing the whole fleet together into one place, doesn't matter what you're tracking and what device you're using, it turns everything into what we call an event. And the beauty of that is that you can then report on any event that comes into the system. So you can really start to make it specific to what you actually want to report on. Best way to explain that is, let's go ahead and jump into our events report first. I'll just clear my filters here. So we're reporting on our events across the fleet. This is probably the most in-depth information that you're going to get in the system, but it really starts to illustrate the amount of reporting that's possible. So if we go ahead and expand out our filters here, we can start to see all the different types of events that we can report on. So they might be things like harsh events to do with safety, like harsh cornering, harsh braking. They might be media events to do with our particular camera. For example, this little purple event here, that's going to be things like distracted driving or eating and drinking while behind the wheel. And all of that comes through as what we call an event. And each one of these events is a bit like a data packet. So if I go ahead and filter it to a GX6, for example, which is our vehicle tracker, we can start to have a look under the hood at some of the rich information we're receiving. So if we open up one of these events, first of all, it's going to give us a little bit of a summary of some of the information we're receiving from CAN bus through J1939. We've got some key parameters here like engine RPM, things like odometer, things like the speed, the wheelbase speed that's coming through, all populates in our report here. The key takeaway here is the amount of information that's actually there. There's a lot you can report on, but obviously we don't want analysis paralysis. We want to turn this into key insights, and that's when some of our other reports come into it. So the next layer above our events is to start to report on some of the insights we're getting. So things like our trips report, that's going to show us exactly where our vehicles have been. They started at A, ended at B, how long this particular trip was, what was the average speed, the distance they traveled, who was the driver behind the wheel, all the way through to something like a time in fence report, which will make good sense based on what we spoke about when we looked at the fleet map. This is going to show us when we entered a fence, when we exited the fence, how long we were there for. Let me go ahead and clear our filter so it'll give us a little bit more information. And I'll hit go. We can see the name of the asset, when they entered, when they exited, the duration they're inside that fence for, and the name of the fence. Key thing to know about reports as well is that any report that you find, particularly if you filter down to something nice and specific, maybe you've applied a few tags, you're only reporting on one particular group of assets, you can start to schedule this report and automate that so you don't have to manually come in here every time. So let's say this time in fence report was particularly important, you wanted to schedule that. Let's go ahead and hit schedule, and I can tell myself when I want to receive it. So let's say I want to receive this report weekly. I want to receive it every Monday morning at 7 AM, so it's ready, waiting in my inbox when I get into work. It's going to give me the last 7 days worth of information. I want it as a CSV file so I can take it into Excel, do some Excel magic, and I can go ahead and choose exactly who I want to send it to. A lot of our customers also automate this to send to their customers. So if you have a lot of customers asking, when did you arrive on site? How many times did you visit us last week, for example? You can automate a lot of this through scheduled reports. We've covered quite a lot here. As you can see, there's a lot of different reports to cover. We'd be here for days if we went through all of them. But the key takeaway is that the beauty of RAM platform being events-based is that there's a lot of potential in what you can report on. So a better question to ask is what's important for your fleet? And the team here will help you scope down a report for something that's specific to you. But also you have a lot of flexibility to play around with a lot of the presets that we've got. Reports, as we know, are super important and valuable to fleets, but what we'd like to change up and talk about next in our workflows module is how you can start to take some of this and automate different actions and alerts based on the events you're receiving.